afternoon. You're watching the English newscast here on Future Television. I'm Linda Samim, and these are today's top stories. The mayor of Majd al-Anjar calls on the state to dissolve the Arab Tawheed Party, which he calls a source of terror. Fighting rages on in southern Aleppo hours after the United States and Russia hailed a breakthrough deal to put Syria's peace process back on track. And at least 20 people are killed as a fire engulfs a packaging factory in the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka. The mayor of the Bekaa Valley town of Majd al-Anjar has called on the state to dissolve the Arab Tawheed Party, which he called a source of terror. Mayor Saeed Yassin's call comes a day after police arrested a man tied to Wahhab, who was allegedly involved in an explosion that wounded 3 young girls in the town earlier this week. Yassin said the Wahhab's party was a source of concern during the rally. The Internal Security Forces Information Branch arrested Hisham Boudiab in the Shuf district village of Jahliye. Authorities are questioning Boudiab over his alleged role in the small explosion which took place on Tuesday morning outside a building in Majd al-Anjar. Security forces are also pursuing another man from the Boudiab family, a member of the Swade family, and a third unidentified individual over their alleged involvement in the explosion. Former Prime Minister Saad Hariri says he hopes the Lebanese will strive to resolve the political turmoil in the country and avert additional negative repercussions. In a statement issued on the occasion of Eid al-Adha, Hariri urged rivals to elect a new head of state as soon as possible in order to avoid further damage and negative repercussions on the whole nation. Free Patriotic Movement founder MP Michel Aoun and his ally Marada Movement leader MP Michel Sleiman are running against each other for the presidency. While Aoun has secured the backing of Hezbollah, the Lebanese forces, and some other March 8 coalition allies, he has failed to mobilize support from key Lebanese factions, particularly Hariri's Future movement. In his statement, Hariri also expressed hope that conflicts in the region will come to an end. The United States and Russia have hailed a breakthrough deal to put Syria's peace process back on track, including a nationwide ceasefire effective from sundown on Monday. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that despite continuing mistrust, the two sides had developed 5 documents that would enable coordination of the fight against armed groups and a revival of Syria's failed truce in an enhanced form. If Russia is able to pressure Assad to respect the ceasefire for a week, Moscow and Washington will set up a joint coordination unit and begin airstrikes against agreed targets.
The United States and Russia are announcing a plan which we hope will reduce violence, ease suffering, and resume movement towards a negotiated peace and a political transition in Syria. And we believe that the plan, as it is set forth, if implemented, if followed, has the ability to provide a turning point, a moment of change. The United States and Russia together are calling on all sides to recommit to a nationwide cessation of hostilities and to honor its previous terms. This will be effective at sundown on September 12th. Now this, I might add also, that is the beginning of the Eid holiday, and we could think of nothing more appropriate than for all the parties to come together and make Eid more meaningful to the people of Syria and the region. Now this requires halting all attacks, including aerial bombardments, and any attempts to gain additional territory at the expense of the parties to the cessation. It requires unimpeded and sustained humanitarian access to all of the besieged and the hard-to-reach areas, including Aleppo. U.S. and Russian experts will work together to defeat Daesh and Nusra. I want to emphasize, these measures can only be implemented effectively if all the parties live up to their obligations. If groups within the legitimate opposition want to retain their legitimacy, they need to distance themselves in every way possible from Nusra and Daesh. And we expect that Russia will ensure that the Syrian government will adhere to all of its requirements about its air activities and about the access for humanitarian deliveries.
Actress Angelina Jolie has visited a refugee camp in Jordan and called for more international effort to help the refugees by ending the conflict. As the International Goodwill Ambassador for the UN and Special Envoy for the UNHCR, this is the fourth time Jolie visited Jordan and the first time she visited the Azra refugee camp since the outbreak of the Syrian crisis. Jolie expressed her concern for the children as a mother herself.
There are children here who remember no life other than this harsh desert environment and barbed wire fences. There are teens here who bear terrible physical and mental wounds of the conflict. Over half of all refugees in Jordan are under 18. My own children are of that age. And like any other parent, it is impossible for me not to imagine what it would be like for my own children in this situation. And it breaks my heart. This is not a problem of Jordan's making, or that Jordan should be left to bear alone. Jordan has been warning for years that they would reach a point where they on their own could do no more. For all the good intentions and the extraordinary efforts in the field and the generosity of host communities, it is impossible to say that we, as an international community, are using all the tools at our disposal, or that we have even come close to doing enough for the Syrian people. So my message to world leaders is that as they prepare to gather at the UN General Assembly in 10 days, to ask the fundamental question of what are the root causes of the Syria conflict and what will it take to end it. And please put that at the center of your discussions.
Coming up next, U.S. President Barack Obama honors victims of the 9/11 attacks in his weekly address. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching the English newscast here. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the Palestinians wanted to form a state devoid of a Jewish population and termed it ethnic cleansing, drawing sharp criticism from the United States. Most countries view Israeli settlements built in the occupied West Bank as illegal and an obstacle to peace. Israel, however, rejects this, saying Jews have been living in the territory for thousands of years.
Seen the Israeli Prime Minister's video. We obviously strongly disagree with the characterization that those who oppose settlement activity or view it as an obstacle to peace are somehow calling for ethnic cleansing of Jews from the West Bank. We believe that using that type of terminology is inappropriate and unhelpful. Settlements are a final status issue that must be resolved in negotiations between the parties. We share the view of every past U.S. administration and the strong consensus of the international community that ongoing settlement activity is an obstacle to peace.
French authorities say 3 women arrested for planning an attack in Paris were being directed by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Anti-terrorism prosecutor François Molin said the 3 suspects were determined to carry out ISIL's deadly ideology and had been given direction by ISIL members in Syria. The women, aged 39, 23 and 19, were arrested on Thursday night as part of a probe into a car loaded with 6 gas cylinders and 3 cans of diesel that was found on Sunday parked near the renowned Notre Dame Cathedral. Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve said the women were preparing new violent and imminent actions. At least 20 people have been killed and 50 injured after a fire engulfed a packaging factory north of the Bangladeshi capital Dhaka. The fire reportedly erupted due to a boiler explosion at the Tampako packaging factory in the industrial town of Tongi. Citing hospital officials, the paper said the bodies of 17 people were taken to a nearby hospital, while 3 others succumbed to their injuries while undergoing treatment. About 100 people are believed to have been working at the building when flames tore through the 4-story factory. Hailing the values and resilience he says both define and sustains Americans, U.S. President Barack Obama honored the nearly 3,000 victims of the September 11, 2001 attacks. In his weekly radio and internet address, he's also hailed the bravery of survivors and the emergency personnel who responded, and the work of scores of others who have worked since to keep the U.S. safe.
A September day that began like any other became one of the darkest in our nation's history. The Twin Towers were reduced to rubble. The Pentagon was in flames. A Pennsylvania field burned with the wreckage of an airplane, and nearly 3,000 innocent lives were lost. Sons and daughters, husbands and wives, neighbors and colleagues and friends. They were from all walks of life, all races and religions, all colors and creeds from across America and around the world. This weekend, we honor their memory once more. We stand with the survivors who still bear the scars of that day. We thank the first responders who risked everything to save others. And we salute a generation of Americans, our men and women in uniform, diplomats, and our intelligence, homeland security, and law enforcement professionals who serve and, in some cases, have given their lives to help keep us safe. A lot has changed over these past 15 years. We've delivered devastating blows to the al-Qaeda leaders that attacked us on 9/11. We delivered justice to Osama bin Laden. We've strengthened our homeland security. We've prevented attacks. We've saved lives. At the same time, the terrorist threat has evolved, as we've seen so tragically from Boston to Chattanooga, from San Bernardino to Orlando. So, in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and beyond, we'll stay relentless against terrorists like al-Qaeda and ISIL. We will destroy them, and we'll keep doing everything in our power to protect our homeland. As we reflect on these past 15 years, it's also important to remember what has not changed. The core values that define us as Americans. The resilience that sustains us. After all, terrorists will never be able to defeat the United States. Their only hope is to terrorize us into changing who we are or our way of life. That's why we Americans will never give in to fear. It's why this weekend we remember the true spirit of 9/11.
And we stay in the United States, where a man had a narrow escape after driving his vehicle off the 9th floor of a parking garage in Austin, Texas. Police say the tire and axle of the Toyota 4Runner SUV got caught in the wire barrier, leaving it dangling off the side of the parking structure. Local media reported the driver was pulling into a parking space when the car continued moving forward and went through the high-tension wire and over the ledge. The man reportedly managed to crawl out of a window in the vehicle. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. The mayor of Majd al-Amjad calls on the state to dissolve the Arab Tawheed Party, which he calls a source of terror. Fighting rages on in southern Aleppo hours after the United States and Russia hailed a breakthrough deal to put Syria's peace process back on track. And at least 20 people are killed as a fire engulfs a packaging factory in the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka. Those are your top stories in English from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and I thank you all for watching.